Hello guys, I'm Tom, founder of A Work in Progress and host of the Showfile Podcast, and welcome to the Showfile Podcast Live at Factory Reset. Make some noise! I'm joined by Mike Lesirge, MD for Barry Can't Swim, Becky Hill and MJ Cole, Trood, Chrisy, MD for Arlo Parks, Kate Nash and Kelly Owens. And this is what music directors expect of session musicians. Let's get into it, shall we? I think, like I said to the about earlier, if you were here for the podcast with Gravity Rigs, I said that, you know, after having these conversations with everyone, I kind of realised that some of these subjects have maybe pivoted a little bit from what we expected them to be in the first place. And this one in particular, I mean, I've been really lucky to talk to some, like, a huge amount of experience on this stage of people who've done shows that are small shows up to really, really big shows. And I think what I realised is that actually what we're talking about is the complicated reality of musicianship in 2026, right? Because you kind of being good at your instrument isn't now just like playing it well or getting grade A or, you know, being able to shred like a motherfucker. It's like every other role in the music industry, and this is music direction included, where it's like constantly doubling up, right? You need to be very fluent in technology. You need to be very technically competent with your instrument. You also need to be able to play really, really well. And you need to understand songwriting too, really. And you need to be able to listen to an arrangement, even if the arrangement is shit, and understand what the artist is trying to do and then recreate that. So this is what this conversation kind of turned into, ultimately, is that we almost need to have a conversation about what we expect as music directors, because the way that people are approaching stuff is so diverse. Like, you guys are almost, as session players anyway, you know, your socials are important, and there's some pop gigs where you won't be able to get them unless you've got more than 50k followers, which I think is bullshit. But that's the reality now. It's a content economy and it's fucking relentless. And you need to have, you know, videos on your Instagram so that we can see them. And you can and be like, well, are they a vibe? Are they not a vibe? And I think when we were doing our research chat, Trood, we got really stuck, I think, for about 45 minutes on talking about fucking Instagram, because it's actually really important, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of what I think. It's worth saying at the beginning of this. This isn't going to be a be-all like answers of here's how you get your next big gig and get paid to be in the music industry. This is going to be more of us exploring, you know, when we have been bringing people onto shows, like, here's what's actually happened, right? Whatever everybody says is correct or whatever, this is what we actually did. And I think that's probably more valuable than one of the courses that's getting sold to me on fucking Instagram.
Which one's that?
So let's start this conversation with how to get noticed, because that's pretty much the first part. And I thought I'd put it to each of you, right? What's your preferred method of noticing a session musician? Is it Instagram? Is it CV? Or is it a recommendation? You only get to choose one. So let's start with Mike.
It'd be a recommendation.
Recommendation?
Instagram.
Yeah, I'd go Instagram.
So
I'm the oldest member on this panel, so I think that's probably why that's the case.
I think that's really interesting, right? Because I like an Instagram account. People send us CVs as well. And it's something I brought up in everyone's conversations about, like, how to approach it. And I guess it's not necessarily showing your age, Mike, for example, that you prefer a recommendation, because also we've had people who've been recommendations on shows.
Yeah, of course, and obviously it's slightly artificial to say it's one or the other. It would be a recommendation, then I'd probably go to Instagram. So I think, you know, it's going to be a combination of all kinds of different things.
Yeah. Like, as you said, Instagram, Trood and Chrisy, like, are you actively looking, or are you waiting for someone to kind of send something to you to then approach, or are you going to be scrolling through? Because I know that I don't know whether it's just the way that I interact with social media, but I certainly don't feel like I have the fucking time to be like finding people.
Do you know what? If I've worked with someone that I really rated, I'll probably end up going through who they've worked with in the past. And so it's I guess it's Instagram, but recommendation through Instagram.
Yeah.
And then I'll kind of do because usually, like, you want 2 or 3 of a bass player or 2 or 3 of like a drummer or whatever. So I'll usually do that, and then look through videos and content, I guess. But like, I'm also not looking for like the most produced video. I'm kind of just looking for overall feel, and if I think that musician would be able to represent the artist that I'm working with.
Yeah, because every artist is unique, right? That's part of the challenge of everything with everyone making a show, is like you can't approach everyone the same way, otherwise it's just not going to work, right? You need to find different interesting ways to represent people. Because like Chrisy, when you came, for full transparency, Chrisy works with a work in progress. It's one of the reasons she's here. Was, come on, Chrisy, please fill the lineup. No, you're also an incredible music director, which is why you're here. But I remember when we were, you know, we kind of heard about you and that you were doing a lot of like drum covers over electronic music. I would say that was probably one of the deciding factors. Because I was like, holy shit, look at this person playing these fucking incredible beats over like, you know, heady electronic tunes. But so that really helped, right?
Yeah,
and when you're
definitely.
making, because you're still making content and stuff, right?
Yeah, I still do that. And like, if I was looking for somebody, I would find like an artist that is in the similar genre or like social circles, and then look who they have playing for them and follow the chain until you get a couple of options. And like, I know this person plays that genre well and has the tools in which they need, and then just check out a few videos, and then I'd probably message a few people saying like, yeah, are they a good vibe and stuff like that. And like, kind of that's what I was doing when I was making those videos. Just like, I love dance music, and I can put that on an acoustic kit, and I have the skills to do that. So I'm kind of searching for those sort of things that I was doing in other people as well.
I think the thing to say about Instagram is that whether or not it's recommendation that switches you onto someone or whatever, you can't avoid the necessity of being on there and having something on there that represents you. Now, what that thing is going to depend on who you are, and how comfortable you are with Instagram, and how comfortable you are with things that are very produced or in a particular type of content. But you need to have a presence, because you need to be able to show to a certain extent what you can do in a way that a CV possibly can't. And obviously, as music directors, we're going to need to suggest you, recommend you, volunteer to book you for things, and you need to be able to show people stuff. So as much as I don't enjoy Instagram as on a personal level, it is unavoidable that you need to have something on there. Now, arguably, you could have a website, you could have any of those other things, but people do say, send me their Instagram. Yeah, I mean, that's a standard. So I don't think there's a way of not playing that game. There's ways of making it suitable to you and fit you and something you're comfortable with and all those other things. But I do think you need to have something.
I think it's sometimes underrated that actually your content can, because it's basically exactly what you do, Chrisy, like your content can be a representation of the kind of music that you're interested in, or even just the music you're interested in at that moment in time. Like, you're just like, I'm getting really into boom bap at the moment, and I'm just going to play those beats or produce those beats or play those beats on like an MPC or whatever, and make sure that you're getting those arrangements correct to what is right in that genre. For us, that's still really useful, right? Because then we're going to an artist and their new era, turns out, is fucking boom bap. And you've just proved that not only do you understand the music, you also understand how to play it and like apply all these different technologies in different ways. And that's why it came around as the complicated reality of musicianship, is like, we don't want to have to not that we don't want to, we can't just tell you, play the music, please. It's like, you have to show us that you're going to be able to musically have a conversation with whatever that vision is that artist is doing, right? When you're putting together a show, like, the music is going to inform the instrumentation, and being clear about what you can and can't play is really, really useful to us. Because you may be a drummer, but you may also be able to play keys, which is useful, right?
Yeah, looking for those multis. Yeah. Looking for those... Yeah,
and particularly this year, actually, for us, it's like a real experience with talking to artists and putting shows together. Like, that's a really real request from like everybody. Everybody wants someone who can play 2 or 3 different things across the show. And I think I said this every time I talk to you guys, but like, music is now infinitely complex in the way that it's written, the way that it's produced, the way that it's recorded, and an album isn't kind of no longer just like 2 guitars and a drum kit. There'll be a trap beat on one. There'll be a drum and bass beat on another, and there'll be, a house beat on another, or whatever, as an example. And the more you can make yourself valuable in those spaces and able to contribute towards that, the better, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, for me personally, like, I want to see I want to see a little bit of variety in, like, I might not, there might be some songs that don't require drums but actually like might require keys or whatever. If there's a drummer out there that can play keys, that's something that I don't see that often, and I think it's a real like attribute to you as a musician if you're looking for work, that you can showcase, you know, your many talents, and that's not limited to the instruments that you play. That's also like if you produce, or like, you know, if you're a beat maker or something like that, like, you know, and if you're passionate about that, like I would want to see a video of that, like personally on Instagram.
You'd want to see it represented on someone's social media as much as possible.
I think so. Yeah. Just in case there is like an artist that does require somebody to be like someone that can play sax and also make a hard grind beat. Do you know what I mean?
It could happen. I mean, when we spoke, Tom, one of the things we spoke about was this good to have around thing.
Yeah.
So that's a loose way of describing all kinds of things someone could bring to a gig or a gig situation or a tour or a social dynamic or whatever that is. And that can be being amazing at playing your instrument. And obviously, if you can do that, represent it online, that's a good thing to do. But whether it's production, whether it's having an interest in a particular style and being able to show that in a very obvious way, whether that's having some Ableton knowledge or some audio knowledge or any of those other things that can be helpful in a gig, I think we'd all say it's probably helpful to represent that and show that, and all of those things are useful. If they're things that you can do, there's no harm in just being brilliant at playing the drum.
Absolutely.
You know,
sometimes you just need that.
That's also a great thing to have on a show. And there, although we all work on all different types of shows and there's all different types of things, and being a utility player is a good thing. There's always going to be gigs for great guitar players, and there's always going to be gigs for great drummers, and that's a legit way to go. So I think finding what your preferred way of working is, I don't think you have to learn, you know, like if you're a drummer and you can produce, great, but you don't have to learn to produce to get gigs. I mean, that'd be my personal take. Everyone's different, every booking scenario is different.
I completely agree with that. I think it's like people are looking for multi-instrumentalists, but like if you're just good at your like instrument and you don't want to learn anything else, you don't need to. Just be good at drums, or like just be good at guitar.
Yeah, 100%. You've spent a lot of time becoming the best guitarist in the world.
Thanks very much.
And Mike's been scrolling Instagram recently looking for the hottest guitar talent, and there's an offer, and sometimes that offer isn't exactly what you expected. And there's lots of different ways of approaching that situation. I think it's something that nobody really talks about, because I'd say people don't always consent to what the gig's actually going to be like a lot of the time, particularly on smaller shows where like it may not be talked about that, you know, the schedule's going to be really, really shit or whatever. And navigating that's incredibly tricky, because you're trying to get like a manager who generally their job is to negotiate in the artist's favour to do these kinds of things. So there's sometimes like little signs where you know like where a show is at, right? And being aware of that is really, really important. And I guess that comes with like a little bit of experience of working with lots of different artists and being able to tell, oh, okay, cool, that artist could probably pay more or pay less. So I guess the kind of thing that I want to talk about is like our role in that, and how important it is for us to be involved or not be involved. Because I know that from kind of talking to all three of you, everybody had a very different opinion, and we have a responsibility to the musicians on the stage up to a certain point and trying to find out what that point actually is. Do you see what I mean? So I know I'm going to go really fucking hard with these questions.
So is the question, how much is it the music director's responsibility to advocate for musicians in the gig scenario then?
I don't know if advocate is necessarily the right way to say it, but something like that, and understanding what you guys think about that, I think the differences in our opinions is valuable.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Because like, there's definitely been like people that come up and they're like, I want a band and I want to rehearse with them 3 times a week.
Yeah, right.
Every week for the next like however months it is to the show, and then like explaining to them, okay, well you don't have the budget for that, and so like fighting people's corner, saying like it's becoming like unethical or immoral to like. Yeah. to do that to these people. So yes, you can have musicians, but you need to value their time of like, yes, but you can only have the 3 days before the show because that's how much you can afford to put that time in. So like, I guess like fighting their corner and like making sure that managing the artist's expectations, but also making sure that the musician can pay their rent at the end of the day.
Yeah, totally.
I think what you just said in particular that is resonant for me is the managing expectations thing. So I think anything's possible. You know, if an artist wants to rehearse for a month or whatever, that's fine, as long as everything's in place to get paid. You know, everything's in place to have that. And we were probably veering into what session players expect from MDs in some of this conversation. But, you know, broadly speaking, I think we'd probably all agree, you want a musician to have some awareness of where a gig is in terms of what they're expecting. So a gig that, again, I spoke about this with you, Tom, a gig that has crew is very different to a gig that doesn't. And a gig that has 100 people on the road is very different to a gig that has 5 or 6. So understanding what your responsibilities are as a contributor to any particular setting, any particular type of touring is important, as well as being, you know, great at your instrument, playing keys in addition to playing drums, whatever those things may be. Knowing what you're expected to bring. Is it your back line? Is it all being bought? Is there a budget to do that? How many days, you know, what do travel days pay? Whatever it may be. I think it's as MDs, we'd all I certainly would want to be part of that conversation and setting expectations and making sure people are aware of what the deal is. But as a session musician, I think it's important to have an understanding of what the contexts are and how they may differ in the types of works that you do. And we all know you can be on an arena tour one day and something else the next, potentially.
Yeah, totally. I mean, sometimes it's hard to initiate that conversation with production and with management to be like, look, actually what's going to happen here? And everybody's going, oh, you know, we're just kind of figuring it out. And you're like, well, it'd be great to know if there's going to be a backline tech, because that will dictate a lot of decisions in terms of the kind of instrumentation we use. Like, should we be doing 4 or 5 guitar changes across this show? Because if it's just one person on stage with the guitars, like, that's probably not going to make any sense, right? Maybe we could do a maximum of 2, and like the number of those instruments that we can use, it directly influences our arrangements, right? Because if you can have 7 guitars, fucking great. We'll do 7 different guitar tones and 7 different guitar parts. But if I can only have 2 of them, well then such and such instrument may not hit the same way as other ones, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Again, it's horses for courses. Understanding what the role is and what is possible to bring to in your role as a session player is important in whatever the situation might be.
So a bit of a hot potato in that I know that everybody wants to know about, but nobody ever really talks about, is who's responsible for setting rates? Because it's something that everybody asks everyone fucking always is, oh, what should I be charging for this? And it's also very hard to quantify what that number ever should be. And no, regardless of if we say a number out loud or not, I think being transparent about who you actually need to talk to about that, because I'm of the opinion, if we've, you know, auditioned and brought you into a show, the manager generally has oversight over the budget, and so your rate may need to be negotiated with them. I mean, this is different show to show, right? I've also had shows where I've sat down with the management and we've said, right, everybody just gets paid this much per day, and that's what it's going to be. And that's going to be crew and band. And, you know, sometimes that will work and sometimes it doesn't. You know, these are all conversations that we're going to get looped into, because music direction, unfortunately, does quickly become a leadership role. And so when someone says like, oh, I want to get paid this much, and managers like, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing, they turn to us and they go, what should I do? Which I'm sure you're all smiling because that's fucking happened, hasn't it? More than once.
No.
So I guess getting you guys' perspective on you know, who is actually responsible for this, because I know to an extent we'd look to the musicians union, whether that actually happens or not in practice is very different, right?
I mean, for me, it's management at a certain level, and then it becomes production, who kind of sets the rates. Really, at no point would I say it's me.
Yeah.
Would you give a view if asked?
If I asked,
like if there was a rate set by someone in management, but then they came to you and said, "Do you think that's reasonable?" I would probably have to. Like, yeah, depending on how little it is, I'd have to step in and say, actually, the usual rate might be this or whatever. But yeah, there's a certain, I would say management first, or like whoever's in charge of the budget first. And then if the musicians kind of end up coming to us, like, I feel like I should fight in the musician's corner if I feel that they're being unfairly paid, but then ultimately, like, it's also up to the musician to decide if what they're getting, what they've been proposed, is an acceptable rate, because what I might think might be different to what the musician might want. So it's a bit of a minefield, really.
Always got to be like a baseline of, I will not take less than this to get out of bed this morning.
Yeah, like offering guidance, but like you could give someone a number, but they'll be like, oh, maybe I'll just go a little bit under so I definitely get picked. But that's their decision at that point. But like, if anyone wants guidance, I think giving a number is totally fair. And obviously you've got more of an understanding of how much money the gig has, and what size, like what kind of tours are coming up. So you can give like a quite good judgment of like, this is where the gig's at. Like this is, but you'll have a tech, so maybe, and stuff like that you can that can help give them a number, and then what they choose to do with it, either bump it up or.
I think it's really hard because often in those budget conversations, there are people that come into it who may have something like marketing manager in their email signature or business manager in their signature, who then have an opinion of how much further below what is probably fair. And unfortunately, they get listened to a lot of the time. In fact, I was on an email chain the other day with exactly that situation, with people dictating the number of rehearsals we had, saying, it's totally fine, you'll be all right with a day. I was like, you're fucking kidding me.
I think an MD's job is to be the musical voice in any of those conversations. So something I would always say is, I'm not responsible for the budget, but I'll give you the musical perspective. And that might apply to paying the right money to get a musician who's great for that job. They might not want to pay that, and that's their decision. But I would always say that it's important to kind of give the musical point of view. If I think it needs a certain number of days rehearsal, I would say, I think for the music it should be this. And then if that gets talked down, still be the musical voice in the room and say, this is what is going to make the show good, and this is the right way to do it. I think you can't really do more than that, because you're not a decision maker usually, in terms of you're not holding the budget purse strings, whatever the phrase is. But either way, you're not in charge of that. But I still think you can and probably should, or at least in terms of what I would do, give that opinion. And it's help, and support musician in decision making, especially for young musicians when they're coming into a gig and might not know what's appropriate.
Much easier bullied than by senior,
correct.
People like production and tour managers will always take the piss.
I don't think it's particularly controversial to say that managers will pay the lowest rate they can get away with paying.
Yeah.
In general, which might be doing the right thing for their artists, and there's good reasons to do that potentially. But I think it's our job to kind of represent fairness, not get the maximum, because obviously there's a cost to the tour and the artist and all those other things, but to ensure that what's being done is as fair as possible.
Trying to figure out a band of here's the minimum, here's the maximum. It's interesting because I don't think it's like a conversation personally I've had directly with production before, of like, we all need to figure out what number needs to go in those budgets. Someone just kind of does it, and then we all go, great, we'll renegotiate, and everybody gets upset the budget is off. Okay, so we've got noticed, we've done the deal, we're getting paid a semi-premium rate. We settled again, as always. But you've got the gig.
We're in a transit van.
We're in the transit van. Not even a splitter, a fucking transit.
Yeah. There's no seats.
Bundled into a large flight case. And we're in the room. And you said it again, but on my notes, I really love that quote that you had, Mike, which is, be good to have around. The be good to have around factor is really great. So, depending on the number of days and depending on how many crew, we need to talk about like programming and sound design. And I love this one that you fucking said to me, which was,
I'm
do you
nervous.
actually know how your gear works?
Yeah.
And I was just like,
Was he talking to you, Tom?
And he
surrounded
didn't.
by synthesizers. Synth dad over here. I've just got them because they look nice.
They do look nice.
But also, it's a real situation that we've all had, right? Where
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
gone into a room and someone's brought something in, and you're just like, "Do you know how it works?" And they're like, I thought that's why you're here. And you're like, wait, what? And when I'm talking about sound design, I'm not talking about like, oh, can I make incredible noises for movies? I'm talking as more of a holistic thing where it's like, when we need a distorted guitar, can you just give us distorted guitar?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Have
we
you
can get
got
into the specifics of that later. So I think talking about like that programming and stuff, because it also bridges lots of different instruments and things like that. Because Chris, you're probably quite a good person to start with because you come from like an electronic drums background, and so there's a lot of like getting your SPD right. Yeah, little gun fingers.
He promised he would do that, and he has.
And I guess, and actually, there's a lot of sound design in electronic drums as well, right?
Yeah, I guess like it depends. Like again, knowing the gig, like if there's not enough time, like sometimes like you'll be reached out to go like, I need you to chop up the samples because you'll know what's going to sound right, and you know how long the tail needs to be for however like. For whatever you're putting on, or where you want the samples to be in your hands. If you're playing those samples, they should be where is comfortable.
Yeah.
So if you, for whatever reason, if you are like chopping up your own samples and putting them where they need to be, or like if you know that like, okay, there's going to be like a lot of programming and sound design that I have to do, the way you put the samples in to like, oh, I'll put them in all dry so I have control of the wet and dry on my SPD, to know that like, I know that there's going to be a lot of like messing around. So I'm going to program in this way for myself so that I can just do it on the fly. Like if the MDs ask me to go like, that like claps like too wet or too dry, that you'll be able to just go like, oh yeah, I've got wet and dry on my SPD. I can just do that now. Cool, wicked. And then if you need to print it later, you can. So like, but you got to know how to use it rather than like, if you are in that situation, or like you've been told like, okay, cool, I'm going to let you handle all your parts, all your samples, then like knowing to do that rather than like panicking and going like, oh, okay, like give me 5 minutes, I'm just going to watch this video and then I'll come back. And it's like, okay, we could have run the song by then. But like but that's obviously that's like an extreme situation. Like it could be to the point where like, okay, like I've chopped up all your samples and I'm going to do all the automation. Can you at least change the MIDI note for me? And then someone looks at you confused and like, MIDI what? Like I brought a sampler in. It's like, okay, well let's like show you. But like, so like having different variations of knowledge of that, like, and I mean, if you brought it, you should know a little bit like about that device if you've brought it in, because part of the reason you've been booked is because you have that piece of gear.
Sometimes, yeah, you're totally right, yeah. So
like, you know, should have some knowledge about it if you've brought it in. If we're like renting that piece of gear from you, like having some understanding of the manual is quite handy, because like someone could bring in a sample pad that I've never seen before. And I was like, okay, cool, wicked. Well, we need that for the gig. I've never used it. Do you? And they go, no. Then it's like, okay, well, that's rubbish.
Thanks for bringing it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Because there's like a reality with a lot of these shows where you aim for 5 days of rehearsal, 6 days of rehearsal, you get 3, and shows take an entire team of people to get right, and that's all the way from music directors, players, sound engineers, the people doing the lighting, the people doing the video, and like the more that you can just help us through that process of being able to go, I don't need to worry about drum samples. Like,
yeah, I think if you know the original topic of this was about what MDs might expect from session players. So in that context, if we're talking about drums, and we were talking earlier about what the different things that might be useful to know about to help with doing a gig well as getting a gig, if you understand Ableton and you maybe understand what playback is, how it works, what things can come from track, what can your pads change, even if you don't you yourself know how to do that, having a generalized awareness of how a show is put together, what the options are, is useful. Also, the managing expectations part we talked about earlier. So if you get a gig and you want to have a conversation before that, you say, would you like me to prepare those samples? I'd be happy to chop them up and put them on pads. Or even as simple as, I'm not super familiar with XYZ. Perhaps someone could help me with that, or I wouldn't be competent doing that, but I am very good at so-and-so. Having those conversations is important, and being upfront and being clear about what things you can do and can't do is good. And also having an awareness of where you can help, where you can add value, or like Chrissy said earlier, saying, I'd be very happy to, why don't you send me the snares? I'll be very happy to chop them up and put them on pads, because I know where I think they would work best for me if we're talking drums. I mean, if we're talking violin, then be great at sight reading and playing tune. It really does depend what the thing is. And obviously as MDs, we're going to have more familiarity. Chrissy might be brilliant at drums, or I arrange, or play horns, whatever it is. So as a session player, if you can help fill in some of those gaps and be useful, it might not be playing a second instrument, but just knowing a bit more about how you can contribute to the overall show with your instrument and the things that live kind of alongside or around your instrument. I think that's valuable.
I suppose that's coming back to, also as well as your playing, like working on your understanding of music as a whole, right? Because if you're talking about how your specific parts are interacting with the playback, you need to understand like kind of how those stems are put together. And you may also sometimes be asking in a situation where the stems that have been sent are a total shit show, right? And you say like, oh, could you just mute like that string part, for example, because I'll be playing that. And it's like, well, it's a stereo, mate. I got 4 stereos for this, and that's how we're going to have to fucking make it work. Can you figure out something around that? Do you know what I mean? It even just initiates that conversation of like, what do we actually, how far can we actually get with this to make sure that when you're sitting in that mix, it sounds really, really good. You lifted your mic for a moment there, Trood. Are we missing a hot take here?
Well, yeah, you are. The only thing I was going to actually add to that, and like we were talking about drum samples, but like if we're talking about like an amp profiler, for example, like a quad cortex or whatever, knowing that, and let's say that like, so you're a guitarist, you get sent the stems or whatever, and it's your job to sort of like recreate the sounds, like knowing like reverbs, where the reverb needs to go in the chain of your quad cortex or your Kemper or whatever, like knowing where your compressor needs to be, and also like a gate or something like that. Like no, like if it's to benefit the show, and that's why you're bringing that piece of equipment like the quad or whatever, like knowing that just makes it so much easier for the MD to be like, you've got it. I know that you've got it. Even if you don't know like where the MIDI is or whatever, and you need a helping hand with that, but if you actually know like how you can put an EQ on whatever it is you've got, I think that's very beneficial for any show, really. To be honest, that's
making it easy for someone who's MDing something is super relevant, because even if it might be, I've listened through to the record and I can hear it's these synth sounds. Let me bring these 2 things, which I think will cover 90% of what's required for this gig. Yeah. As an MD, if you get a message like that, you're like, yeah, sold. Brilliant. Yeah. You're on the next one.
Thank you.
Because
it sounds good.
Yeah. So I think that, that's very relevant.
Yeah. I guess it kind of ties into this, right? But another note that I had that also comes across conversations that I had with the 3 of you is, can you hear everybody else in the room and communicate with them? Which I almost feel silly saying it, but we talked about it a lot, Trood, about it was when we got lost in our Instagram hole, and we were talking about how do you even represent that in the scope of like Instagram, right? But also sometimes you'll bring someone onto a show and like they're very happy playing their solos, and as soon as they need to lock in with everyone else, they maybe don't do that. And maybe communication as a whole, in terms of understanding the people around you, understanding the tracks, understanding the monitor engineer, is also kind of like an important thing.
Yeah, you can get lost in the like technology and stuff, but actually, like fundamentally, if you're a bass player and you need to lock in with something, lock into the kick drum. Like that's kind of what we were talking about, wasn't it? Yeah. And it's okay. So you've got the gig, you're in rehearsals, and there's a few people that you're surrounded by, and you know the songs. And I'm going to talk about this from a drummer's perspective. Am I going to be just looking at my snare or my hats? No, I'm actually going to try and look at what everyone else is doing and try and lock in with what everyone else is doing. because if we're all locked, the song's just going to sound better. Really,
Yeah.
That's kind of what we were saying, wasn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was hoping we'd explore that more.
No need.
I mean, if you're talking about if you want to broaden it out, if you're talking about can you hear everyone in the room, then that might speak to something around not just, playing with people and being conscious of what other people are doing, what other musicians are playing, but having an awareness of what the different roles are, maybe within the band, within the crew, saying, chatting to the monitor engineer, being on good terms with people, being open to communication and taking feedback and giving feedback in a constructive way. All those things are part of, I think, the job. Knowing what the most important thing to hear might be, if it's a harmony instrument, if it's a lead instrument, if you're in a string quartet, hearing the others for sure, but also being able to understand what your role is and play appropriately for that. So you made a comment about solos versus section playing or rhythm playing or whatever you want to call it. All of those things I think are obviously really important, and that speaks to what we were saying earlier about being an expert in your instrument, but also have an awareness of where you fit. And that could be socially or vibe-wise or performance or any of those other things. So, yeah.
And actually, sorry, if I could just circle back to, let's say that you're also working with like stems and, like percussion, for example, or whatever, being aware of what's also being played on top of like what's going on in playback world or whatever. Like I was guilty of this when I was playing, where I'd just have no percussion and maybe just like drums click and then a little bit of like when I was a lot younger, and then actually understanding that if I have the percussive elements in my ears or whatever, like I'm more likely to be locked in to the track itself. So it's also it's being aware of like who you're in the room with, and then also what else is going on with your respective instrument.
That's relevant. Also, I think listen to the show. So if you're in the band, if there's a virtual sound check, just go and stand up front and hear, because what you play, if you're listening to your own mix, might substantially differ from what you might play if you listen to the overall show 100%. And hear where your part fits into the context of the front of house's mix, know the music. So your musical choices will be informed by not just, as you say, what you're hearing in your ears, or maybe what you're hearing from the other musicians on the stage, but what the whole show might sound like. I think that's a very important part of being a good contributor to an overall dynamic as a session player.
I think that's a really good point to make, because it's so common now that every engineer on a stage is going to be doing virtuals, and there's going to be a time in the day where that mix will be coming out of a PA and that'll be you doing it last night. And as much as the listening medium of your headphones on the bus or in the van or on the plane, listening to a front of house mix is like fine and whatever, and you can definitely make some decisions based on that. Like how it translates in a room is that's what we're working towards. That's actually what you're playing to. That's actually what we're arranging to and sound designing to, is like that room with a crowd. And that's it's hard, isn't it? Because if you really wanted to judge what you're doing, you'd need to go stand in the crowd while you're playing. So virtuals, I guess, are the closest.
Or rehearsal recordings. Or
exactly.
Rehearsal recordings as well, yeah.
There's ways of getting a sense of it. Go to your front of house engineer, stand next to them in soundcheck and say, play me bar 54 of track 3, which is my solo. I want to hear it. That's what you need to do. Anna, isn't that right, Anna? She's in here somewhere.
So we haven't got long left, and I think the easiest one to talk about is vibes and more vibes. Everybody talks about being vibes. Could you just be more fucking vibes, please? Discuss. How do you be like? Basically, I think, is it actually kind of toxic to tell someone to just be vibes? Because you're kind of telling someone like, can you just be cool though? Because it's a tricky one to answer, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Yes, it's toxic, or yes, be vibes.
Or both.
Yeah, both, definitely.
Yeah, what does that mean? Like, be vibes. What does that actually mean? Does that mean be a good person? Does that mean
I think that's the point that I'm trying to make. Yeah, I can't figure out how consistently everybody says, yeah, but you've got to be a good hang, or you've got to be good vibes, or things like that. And what does that actually fucking mean? Because and I thought this would happen, is the interesting thing is none of us can actually say or describe it, because it's like this feeling, it's about your communication, it's about your playing, it's about your musicality, it's about how you can interact with other humans. But also we are expecting it from people, so I feel like maybe we should be able to verbalize it a little bit better.
I think it's probably important to say there's not one way to be, right?
Yeah.
So on a tour, and there's a million things anyone could say, you know, be respectful, be thoughtful, be any of those things. But ultimately, if you're on a gig, you need to be yourself, and being vibes doesn't mean be hilarious all the time. It might to someone.
That
it
might
not
be annoying.
It could be annoying, but it might be. There's probably a way of being that you can express yourself, but be respectful of people's boundaries, and be helpful.
Be considerate.
Being considerate is
yeah,
important.
I guess
Especially
if you're on a
especially
tour,
on
like
tour.
yeah, like tours are difficult. You're in a room with people who are probably very nice, but who you wouldn't choose to be for like for 3 months. You know, like you didn't choose this or whatever. Like, so yeah, be considerate. Can you swear on this?
Of course you can fucking swear.
Don't be a cunt.
Don't be a cunt. Oh, there you go, Anna. I think Anna had a bet going for how long it would take me to say cunt today.
But you did.
You've done very well. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh,
You said
everybody
it
did.
several times, just not on the mic.
Yeah, be considerate, like of the fact that like it's not just you in the space. It doesn't matter what that space is. It could be the venue, could be like the van or the bus or whatever it is you're traveling in or traveling, and then the people that you're traveling with, just be considerate. There's other people that have other things going on. Like,
There's always going to be sort of pressures on tour to be a certain way or do certain things, but I think you can be vibes by, you know, spending time by yourself. But when you're there, be cool. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be like last one in the bar every night.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people I know who are great at touring, great company at touring, who don't drink or whatever, and I think that's absolutely fine. So
Absolutely.
hundreds of ways of doing it, and as long as you're doing the basics, which is what Jane and Chrissy and you were saying. I'm not going to say the word.
oh well. No,
Mike's far too classy for that.
Then I think there's lots of ways of being vibes on tour, or in a rehearsal room, or in a session, or in any of those other things, you know.
Yeah,
or in a
even
podcast.
when we're picking people as well, throwing people in the hat, like there's definitely people I like think of, and I know this person will be great for this artist because they're in a like they've just got a similar personality. Like when picking like a player, like not only for how they play, but like I know that these people will get along really well, and they'll be happy to have this person as their guitar player for many years because I think they'll end up being friends. Like that's something I like consider as well. But then also being, you know, like what these guys said, being considerate. And then also sometimes like if you're working with somebody that's really anxious, knowing that like okay, like let's not say anything to get in their head, maybe don't be too creative with your ideas because they start spinning out or something like that. Understanding that sort of space, or like if you're working with somebody that's like gets really easily distracted and people are egging it on, and then we never get any work done. It's like, can you not encourage all that behaviour, please? Because like we're spinning wildly off topic.
Who are you talking about just now?
No, I'm not. It's many situations, but like. Those elements are quite handy in rehearsal, and then then do what you want on tour, I guess, from there. But
do what you want on tour. You heard it here first.
That's the one I'm cutting into short form, is just Chrissy going, do what you want on tour.
I think also like positivity on tour. Obviously, that's not always the case, but like you know, if you do, like when you do get a job, and like you're happy with rates and you're happy with the style that you're playing in and everything's like going your way or whatever, like you should be stoked. You should be stoked that you're doing the thing that you've been wanting to do for 10 plus years, and you know, that's a good thing, like I think. So to a certain extent there's a bit of positivity involved. Obviously that's not always the case or whatever, but you don't want to tour with someone who's completely negative all the time.
That's why nobody wants to tour with me.
I tour with you.
I mean, we're in our last 2 minutes, guys.
Fuck.
Yeah, it goes quick, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This is what happened when we were fucking doing the pre-conversations. It was just like an hour and a half later. Jesus Christ.
I've had a nice time.
Yeah, thank you, friend. Thank you for coming. I mean, thank you to all three of you for talking to me about stuff.
Tight.
Hopefully some of it
Thanks, Tom.
is important. But yeah, cool. That's another podcast, friends. Thank you all for coming. Make some noise for Mike Lesirge, Trood, and Chrisy Lopez. Next, we're going to be talking about what session musicians expect of music directors. We'll be back in about 30 minutes. Appreciate you all. Enjoy some brands.